The topic of this presentation is the plant nutrient phosphorus and its importance in turfgrass growth and development and the potential environmental concerns associated with it. Phosphorus levels range in the plant from 0.1% to 1%, with the normal range below 1%. Excessive levels are usually above 1%. Excluding carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen, phosphorus behind nitrogen and potassium is the third highest nutrient concentration in the plant. Phosphorus is considered one of the three major nutrients along with nitrogen and potassium. On a fertilizer bag, the analysis of these three nutrients is displayed prominently. The analysis on this fertilizer bag is 16-4-8, with the 16 representing the percent nitrogen in the bag, and the 8 is the percent of potassium. The phosphorus content, expressed in the form phosphorus oxide, or P2O5, which is the standard form that the American Association of Plant Food Control officials use to set what the fertilizer manufacturers must guarantee in their fertilizer products. The actual phosphorus in the bag is approximately 44% of the phosphorus oxide content. To calculate the amount of actual phosphorus using the previous fertilizer bag analysis, the phosphorus oxide content in the bag was 4%. If we multiply the 4% times the weight of the bag, which is 50 pounds, we get 2 pounds of phosphorus oxide. By multiplying the phosphorus oxide by the correction factor of 0.437, the amount of actual phosphorus in the bag can be determined, which in this case is approximately 87 hundredths of a pound. Phosphorus plays a major role in the plant. Almost all metabolic processes, especially those involved in energy storage and transfer, require phosphorus. Phosphorus is a critical component of adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, which is required to drive metabolic processes. Phosphorus is important in protein biosynthesis, phospholipids biosynthesis, nucleic acid biosynthesis, and lipid synthesis, to name a few. In turf, phosphorus is extremely important during turf establishment, where if supplied at the time of seeding and with subsequent applications, the result is a much more successful and quicker turf establishment. Phosphorus deficiencies is not normally common in turf situations. The greatest potential for phosphorus deficiency occurs on high sand content soils or root zones. Besides soils low in phosphorus, deficiencies can occur during seedling establishment and during cool spring periods when roots may not be actively taking up phosphorus. Phosphorus symptoms may appear as a bluish cast to the turf, as shown here. When phosphorus is applied as a fertilizer to the turf, it is released from the fertilizer into the soil in a soluble form. The turf plant absorbs phosphorus as either hydrogen phosphate or dihydrogen phosphate. The uptake efficiency is low, normally in the range of 10 to 40% by the plant. The phosphorus that is not taken up by the plant is metabolized by soil microorganisms and is quickly fixed into inorganic forms or immobilized in organic forms. The soluble forms of phosphorus are highly reactive at lower pHs with iron, aluminum, and manganese, while at higher pHs they react with calcium. The end result, these forms become fixed to soil particles and are unavailable for plant uptake. Soluble phosphorus leaching is minimal, where the greatest potential for it to leach would be on high sand soil or root zones. Phosphorus removal from the turf sites occurs from clipping removal and potentially from runoff and sedimentation movement. Phosphorus runoff is a major environmental concern. of lakes, especially the Great Lakes, like Lake Erie and Lake Michigan, which is shown here, because phosphorus is a major cause of algae blooms. Algae blooms can result in eutrophication of bodies of water columns that result in dead zones in lakes and ponds. Lawn and golf course fertilization has been implicated as a source of phosphorus contamination into water columns. The science does not seem to bear this out, however. In a rather global sense, the total amount of phosphorus supplied to turf is rather insignificant. Data from the Michigan Department of Agriculture for 2006 reported approximately 1.5 million tons of fertilizer were used. Of this total, agriculture accounted for approximately 83%, while home lawns was around 3%. Additionally, water and sediment runoff is minimal from established turf areas. Research studies in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and New York report that turf grasses are similar to prairies in phosphorus runoff, slightly higher than a forest, and considerably less than is found in agriculture. In lawn and golf situations, the greatest source of runoff is through stormwater runoff where impervious surfaces like driveways, roads, and parking lots exist. Newly constructed sites can also be a source of sediment movement. Again, early establishment of turf is a means of minimizing nutrient and sediment movement. It is important to be an environmental steward. When it comes not only to phosphorus, but any product used on turf, best management practices should be instituted. Regarding phosphorus, mow at the proper height of cut for the turfgrass species. Turf mowed at a higher height of cut along with good density reduces the risk of water and sediment runoff. Mulch or return clippings to the turf. This allows for the recycling of not only phosphorus, but other nutrients. Keep all products applied to turf on the turf. Minimize the accumulation of products and clippings on impervious surfaces where they can be washed into the storm sewer system. In this case, the turf clippings are brushed back onto the lawn, minimizing movement along impervious surfaces. Monitor turf practices like over-irrigation to minimize runoff. Minimize fertilizer applications to frozen turf areas. Runoff potential increases when the surface is impervious. And only apply phosphorus when needed. Use soil test reports as a guide. This ends this presentation.